and welcome to another episode on Planet Outlook. Air pollution continues to dominate news headlines for these winter months. This is now very much a public health hazard. My guest today is Dr. Vivek Nangia, an internationally renowned interventional pulmonologist, one of the country's most eminent doctors on pulmonary medicine. He is also principal director and head of Max Super Specialty Hospital, as well as Max Smart Super Specialty Hospital in Saket, New Delhi. Thank you, Dr. Nangia, for joining us on Planet Outlook. It's a pleasure having you on this show.
Thank you, Ananda, for having me on the show. It's really indeed an honor for me to be here with you, sharing the screen with you today.
Let me begin, Dr. Nangia, by asking you, you treat a lot of patients every day across age groups, the young, elderly. What are you observing? What is the state of our lungs today, especially in a city like Delhi, which is very much in news with polluted air for now several years?
So when I started my career in Delhi, that was a little more than 20 years ago. We did not used to get so many patients coming in with asthma, breathlessness, especially the younger lot. This would usually be the elder lot who would be coming to us with breathlessness. They would have been smokers in the past, or would have had some exposure to biomass or some other kind of dust like, the crushers dust, stone crushers dust. So they would all be having a different kind of an entity, either a COPD or a silicosis. Asthma used to be there, but not as much. Now what we're seeing is that younger and younger children are coming to us with complaints of frequent colds, coughs, breathlessness, especially in the winter months. And, they're tending to develop a lot of allergies. In fact, there was a study also conducted some time back, which had shown that 40% of the kids going to schools in the various metros of the country, they were not able to perform their pulmonary function test very well. So they had some deficit or the other in their PFTs, which actually suggests that it's because of the air pollution that their lungs are getting affected. Also, we've been doing bronchoscopy. Bronchoscopy is like an internal examination of the lungs, like you would do an endoscopy of the stomach. We do the bronchoscopy of the lungs. And we see that people who've been non-smokers, even they have these blackish patches in their airways inside, which we would attribute it to the air pollution only. There's no other way that those blackish patches could have developed inside. And those blackish patches are nothing but the carbon that is there in the polluted air. So that is the kind of change that we are seeing over the years in patients who've been coming to us.
And what are the other different kinds of ailments people are developing? Asthma you talked about. I heard of things like lung cancer. So if you can a bit elaborate on those things, the different kinds of ailments or the complications one can develop.
So basically, although we think it's just normal to think that, lungs are the only lungs are getting affected because of the air pollution, but actually that is not true. The damage begins right when the child is still in the womb, is still unborn, has not even seen the world yet. There are enough studies which have shown that such children who are still to be born, but the mothers are exposed to polluted air over a period of time, they have underdeveloped lungs, poor lung functions. The child could, the fetus actually could still be there would still be a premature child. There could be intrauterine growth retardation. As this child is born and then starts to grow, in the early years, they develop allergies, frequent cold, cough, asthmatic episodes. They're more prone to infections like tuberculosis, viral infections, pneumonias. Then in the adolescence, they become more prone to developing asthmas, respiratory allergies, poor immune mechanisms. In fact, children are also known to develop mental retardation because of exposure to polluted air. Then in the middle ages and the elders, we see lots of, besides asthmas and COPDs, that is a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, we also see lung cancers developing. A new trend in cancer that we've seen is cancer developing in young women. What we need to know is that lung cancer has classically been associated with a smoker's lung. It was always considered that if you're a smoker, you would develop a cancer. But now what we're seeing is that young ladies who've never been exposed to any kind of smoke are developing cancer, which was unknown earlier. And we can only attribute it to the rising air pollution levels. These people also become more prone to developing infections, tuberculosis, pneumonias. Then all this is not limited only to the lungs. They can also, polluted air can also impact the heart, resulting in an increased incidence of acute heart attacks, what is called the myocardial infarction. It could result in brain strokes. It could result in certain other types of cancers, malignancies, and also results in an overall shortening of the lifespan. You know, when Barack Obama had come to India in, this was what year, 2015 probably, he had a 3-day visit to our country from the 25th, 26th to the 27th of January when he'd come to chair the Republic Day parade here in our country. And when he went back, all the analysis that was done based on the exposure that he had had to the pollution levels here in our country, it was said that he's lost 6 hours, sorry, not 6 years, I'm extremely sorry. 6 hours of his lifespan has been reduced because of the exposure to the polluted air in our countries. And imagine, we are doing that day in and day out, how many hours we would have reduced, or how many days or weeks we would have reduced in our lifespan by now.
Yeah, on lifespan, Dr. Nangia, there are reports that people, especially in the Gangetic Belt, just not Delhi, are losing around 9 years of their lives. And the
Absolutely.
Indian average is about 5 years kind of thing. And the exposure to the high levels of particulate matter, especially PM 2.5, has caused millions of deaths. There are recent reports that there are over 1 million deaths in India, and a majority of them are infants. Is it going from bad to worse, or what do you see in the future? Because this is becoming very a recurrent theme.
See, pollution levels are only rising with time. The pollution levels during winter months can be attributed to the heavy vehicular traffic in the cities because of the the stubble burning and the crop burning in the northern parts of our country. Then because of the smog that develops in the northern parts because of the cold weather, there is an anticyclonic kind of a situation which does not allow the air to rise. So everything is trapped closer to the surface of the earth. So as a result, the PM 2.5 particles and smaller particles, they remain suspended in the air for a prolonged period. So we have a constant exposure to these, and there's a high probability that they would be damaging our lungs and our various other systems as well.
Now with, sorry, doctor, I was just saying that with also COVID-19, so there is an unholy link between COVID and air pollution. There are several scientific papers which establish that there is greater chance of COVID infection with polluted air.
Yeah, sure. I would absolutely agree with you. There's definitely a higher chance that there would be increased number of cases of COVID. Not only an increase in the number of cases, it has also been shown by some studies that the mortality levels are also higher. In fact, it has been shown in one study that in areas where the air pollution levels were high over a period of time, there with every one micrometer increase in the PM 2.5 particles led to an 8% higher mortality. So that is a kind of link, and there are two hypotheses behind it. One hypothesis feels that because the PM 2.5 particles are suspended for a very prolonged period, so if there's somebody who's suffering with COVID, is coughing, sneezing, laughing, and is generating those aerosols or droplets, those droplets get attached to the PM 2.5 particles and then remain suspended in the air for a prolonged period, therefore increasing the transmissibility of this virus. The second hypothesis is that the lungs are already damaged because of the air pollution. See, what happens is that these particles, you actually have to break down the air pollution into its various components. You know, what are the various components? Components is one are the gases. The gases are like the toxic gases, like the sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, ozone. Then you have lead, you have ammonia, and then you have the PM particles. That means the particulate matter. Particulate matter are the suspended particles, which are of different sizes, 2.5 micron, 5 micron, 10 micron. A particle size of 10 micron and all doesn't, and a bigger does not cause much of a problem, except for some irritation in the eyes, some nasal congestion, watering. A particle size of 5 microns would go and lodge itself in the throat and not go beyond that. But a particle size of 2.5 particle size microns and smaller would go right into the lungs. A particle size less than 1 micron would not even be held back by the various defense mechanisms of the lungs and would be absorbed directly into the bloodstream and start circulating, thus resulting in an inflammatory cascade, which results in the various damages to the various organs of our body. So it is presumed that this inflammatory cascade that is going on in the lungs is actually providing a hotbed for the virus to enter inside the human body without any defense mechanisms being offered to it at all. You know, it's like already there is a simmering coal, and all you need to do is just put in a few drops of oil and it'll start flaring up again. It's just like that. That is why we believe that the COVID-19 cases would definitely be higher if the air pollution levels don't come under control.
But how difficult for you as a doctor and the entire medical fraternity to pinpoint mortalities to air pollution? Now, you can say death has been caused due to lung cancer, to asthma, to stroke kind of thing. But isn't it a bit difficult to pinpoint as a medical practitioner? Because I'll give you a context to it, because last month you've seen the historic judgment in the UK court on the death of 9-year-old Ella Debra, which happened actually in February 2013. And air pollution was put on the death certificate of her with that UK court judgment. So, will it be possible in a country like India in the future where we see air pollution as a cause on the death certificate of people?
So that's a very valid point, actually. You know, there's no one single test that can actually tell you that this death has been because of the high air pollution levels. There's no way you can be taking out a blood sample and monitoring the PM 2.5 or any of those gases inside the blood and say, okay, this is what it is. Plus, it is not like an acute phenomena, you know, that you've been exposed today and you would die tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that. It's an ongoing process of damage to the lungs, you know, and this is nothing new. I don't think we need any science or any test to demonstrate that. Because if you go back into history, way back in 1952, in the peak of winters, I think it was the 5th of December till the 9th of December, 4 days, starting from a Friday to a Tuesday. In those 4 days, 4,000 lives were lost. You know, at that time, obviously, science was not so well developed. Yet they realized that it is nothing but because of the air pollution that these people have died. This is one of those days when, you know, there were anticyclonic conditions. They were relying basically on coal as their main fuel of combustion. There's a lot of smoke which had resulted in smog. 4,000 deaths, which later on when they analyzed, they said that it was probably around 12,000 deaths that happened in those 4 days in London alone. And another 100,000 people fell sick because of the air pollution. Even if you see the statistics now, you know, we may not be able to do the blood test in our patients, but even the WHO agrees that air pollution is considered to be the single most hazardous environmental risk factors to our health. Not just that, they have shown it beyond doubt that the number of deaths occurring because of air pollution are significantly higher, probably 3 times higher than those because of HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria all put together. So can you imagine the number of deaths that would be happening? In fact, there's also a study which was conducted and which said in 2019, 1.6 million deaths occurred because of the air pollution. So I don't think we need any evidence for that. There is a study from AIIMS, which was conducted many years back, I think early 2000 sometime, where they've shown that whenever the air pollution levels were higher, those days, the number of admissions coming to the hospital because of asthma, because of COPD, and because of heart attacks was about 20 to 25% higher than on a usual day. So there is enough evidence. I mean, we don't need to be running after that. We don't need to be trying to prove or reinventing the wheel that yes, air pollution can result in deaths. Air pollution is an invisible, silent slow killer, where you would not get to know. It's like a slow poison, in other words, if I would say.
But Dr. Nagia, we have done, in fact, quite well. The initial scare that was that with toxic air, because in Delhi, the average AQI is 300 plus, always kind of thing. And that way, we are in January and our infection rates have gone down, in fact, kind of thing. So, and a lot of people are very surprised across the world. I get calls from the US and the Europe because how have you managed this? How have your mortality rate both and the infection rate has gone down in the winter when everywhere it's increasing? What's your take on this?
That's a little difficult question to answer because we don't have any epidemiological data with us to suggest that why it has come down really. What are the factors that have contributed to it? But I think Diwali was a major surge. Post Diwali, the second or third week of November was a major surge in our country. That was a time when the hospitals were flooded with patients. We were flooded with calls all day long, 24/7 is what we were working then. But now, yes, I agree that in the last 1 week, 10 days, the numbers have come down, but it's only happened in the last 10, 12 days. And this waxing and waning phenomena is known to happen with COVID virus. I don't think we are like, of course, we are on a downward trend right now, but I don't think we'll remain there. It will again start surging in the next few days. That is what the presumptions are. So let's see how we go. As of now, we should not go into a premature excitement kind of a mode. We should still keep our fingers crossed, keep praying and hoping that this is actually a true downward trend and not just a temporary phase, which will start to surge again.
I want to now come to the other aspect of air pollution, which is less talked about. No, all the air pollution talk is about outdoor air. The AQI is also outdoor. We wake up and check the AQI. But there are several studies which show the indoor air in our homes or in our schools, in our colleges, hospitals, offices, is in fact sometimes more polluted than the outdoor air. And 90% or 80% of our times are spent indoors. So your take on this?
Very valid point, Ananda. In fact, there are studies which have shown that the pollution levels inside the house are higher than outside the house. Or indoor air is more polluted than the outdoor air. I wouldn't say houses because houses is only one part. Even being in the office like we are right now, we are indoors. Even being in the malls, even being in the schools, colleges, offices, everything is indoors only. Practically outside on the streets, you're only there for a couple of hours in the day and not more than that. Probably that is the time when you're traveling from home to office or office to home or traveling from one place to the other. That's the only time when you're out on the streets, literally. So the indoor air is equally important, in fact, more important, and also important because that is one air that we can actually control because that air is still under our control. We can take certain measures to keep it in check.
So what are the measures for the viewers, for the benefit of our viewers, if you can just go through what people should really focus on and what should people really take care in their indoor environment?
So basically for that, we need to understand what are the factors that are contributing towards the air pollution inside. First of all, it's the 25% of the indoor air pollution is because of the outdoor air, because we don't live in airtight chambers. The moment you open the door or the window, the outside air is bound to come inside. One is that. Second major factor is the pets. Then many houses have heavy carpets, heavy furnishings, which trap a lot of dust, and it isn't possible to be cleaning them every now and then. So that becomes a huge source. Then the electronic equipment in the kitchens. If the chimneys are not working, or if your microwaves and the ovens are not working, or they're faulty, there could be smoke, fumes. There could be fumes because of the kitchen smoke per se. Then in the washrooms, in the basements, there could be dampness that could be contributing to the air pollution. Many people light dhoop, agarbattis, that is the incense sticks. They contribute majorly. In fact, there's been a study that is conducted and has shown that people who are lighting incense sticks on a regular basis have developed chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. There was also a time when the ladies of the house would, run the chula. Of course, that is not there anymore. But in winters, people do light up coal and wood to keep themselves warm. That also contributes, of course, not within the houses, but outside the houses, yes. That also contributes to the air pollution. So looking at all these things, I think what is important is Did I mention pets? Pets are also an important source of carrying pollution with them because they would carry the dust. Their urinary droplets could also be allergic to certain people. So first of all, we should not be having pets in the houses. Ventilatory mechanisms should be such that we have to have exhausts in our houses. Of course, that may not be possible, but at least in some of the rooms, there should be an exhaust which could push out the air from inside and keep the inside air clean. There are also certain air conditioners which could be attached, I mean, into which the HEPA filters could be fitted. HEPA filters are known to help in controlling the air pollution as well as the viruses and the bacteria. Keep your indoor equipment in a functional state. Adequate chimneys should be there. Washrooms should have exhaust fans again. Basements should be kept dry. Then avoid having heavy carpets, heavy furnishings so that they don't trap the dust. Avoid lighting incense sticks. And in fact, there are certain homes I know where they conduct ovens inside the house, inside the rooms. So all that has to be avoided. Smoking is one thing that I did not touch upon. Cigarette smoking also contributes to the air pollution. Of course, it damages the smoker himself, but also damages people who are around him because they are also passively smoking or breathing in the same air which is carrying that smoke. And please remember, a smoker himself only takes in 1/3 of the smoke, while rest of the 2/3 comes out into the environment, which is then being breathed in by the people who are just standing around, and they're called the passive smokers. So these are all the major, and then of course you could have green plants indoors. There are certain indoor plants that could be kept inside, and they could actually help in cleaning up the air.
Yeah, I was about to come on the green plants because it seems with the air purifier, the certain indoor plants are now trending at home. So does those plants really work? There are two opinions.
Yeah, so some of them are known to work, like mother-in-law tongue plant, ferns, and some other plants. I'm forgetting the names. They are known to work indoors. They don't generate carbon dioxide. They actually generate oxygen. And that is why they're classically called the indoor plants, and they typically classify into the indoor plant category.
The other concern, Dr. Nangia, comes from the fitness enthusiasts. Now, during this pandemic, the gyms are closed. And because of the polluted air, early mornings and evening walks are basically less kind of to be avoided. So what does one do, especially for runners or cyclists who kind of thrive on this environment? What advice or what prescription do you have for them?
I know these people won't really like me when I say that, yes, it is not advisable to go out in the smoggy weather outside, especially early morning and late evening hours. I would suggest if they have to go out, they should go out at a time when it's nice, sunny, bright. The AQI levels are less than 100 or at least less than 150. That is the time that they should be, exercising outdoors. Rest of the time, they should be exercising indoors. Indoor environment also needs to be clean. So in the area where they are exercising or gymming, they should not be having heavy carpets, furnishings, curtains. There should be an exhaust. They could have an air purifier inside. That may just work, especially if it is a closed room. Then definitely air purifier would be of help. And probably have an exhaust fan near the window or the wall, which can actually throw out the indoor air.
You mentioned during your chat on the indoor air quality, generally because we are now trapped in metropolises due to our work, due to our families, due to other engagements. But is there a prescription, a kind of something that generally people can follow to take care of their lungs?
So are we talking about food and other kinds of things?
Yeah, in terms of how does one keep fit in this basically?
So one is that we should keep ourselves well hydrated, rely more on antioxidants. We would have supplements of vitamin B and vitamin C supplements. We should be exercising, but exercising indoors or exercising outdoors when the AQI levels are less than 150. Indoors, when you're exercising, we should be doing exercise like pranayam, deep breathing exercises. Of course, for those who are exercise freaks and those who are, who want to do their treadmills and all, they could do that all indoors. There is no issue.
And one last question before we close this is, there are now several products from paints to plywoods to tiles, which are coming like, which basically they are taking the position of branding themselves as kind of pollutant free kind of thing, and with various medical certificates. So is there any truth in these products?
Truly, I have myself have been seeing those advertisements, and I'm really being shocked on seeing those advertisements. That can there ever be truth behind them? I am not sure myself because I haven't read those medical certificates. In fact, I was wondering that do they have enough authorization to be coming out with an advertisement like this? So definitely, if you're saying so, I'll have to go into it. That who has really issued those certificates and on what basis? Because scientifically, I don't think it is possible to label a product to remain pollution free or remain antivirus free for the rest of the 5 or 10 years of its life that it may have. So I really don't have, and I wouldn't believe in it personally till I see those certificates and the bodies who have actually authorized them.
Thank you, Dr. Nangia. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And
thank you.
And stay well, stay safe. We'll see you soon in another episode, maybe on Planet Outlook. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.